Hi again then guys, and welcome to my 22nd pick out of my top 30 list for cars which I would love to see feature on Gran Turismo at some point, either as natural cars already on the game or potentially DLC vehicles, although the former is obviously more desirable. And in this series we've featured race cars and road cars, and this is another road car, specifically another supercar. As is fairly obvious, I am a big fan of supercars, but the supercars and cars in general really that I am the biggest fan of are cars which don't necessarily try to follow the crowd, and cars which instead try to be completely different. And this is definitely a supercar that does that. This is one of the better known models of my top 30 list. Many of the cars which I've chosen are fairly obscure. This one though is pretty well known. It's the Zenvo ST1, a car which was infamous as well as famous for, of course, catching fire on a couple of occasions and not necessarily being as quick either around the track or in a straight line as its power may lead you to believe. But I don't view that as a bad thing. I love the Zenvo, and the reason why I love it is because of those reasons. It's not a perfect supercar. It doesn't even try to be. Regardless of its reliability issues, even if the car works perfectly, it's still not even attempting to be anywhere near as fast as other supercars with its power are, because that's just not the purpose of the Zenvo. The Zenvo is designed to be a supercar which is about the driving experience, the ownership experience, and something which you can actually use on the road and every day. Now, reliability does hamper that, of course, but that's irrelevant on Gran Turismo, and the car has tons of tuning potential, especially as a track car. Now, in terms of straight line performance, the 7-litre engine gives you just over 1100 horsepower and just over 1050 foot-pounds of torque. So it's never going to be slow, regardless of its engineering. And it's not slow. It does 0 to 60 in 3 seconds dead and has a top speed of 233 miles per hour. And that's the part which probably disappoints some people, and you can understand why. 1100 horsepower giving you a top speed of 233 does not sound that good, especially for a 2009 machine. So why do I like it? Well, I like it for the same reason that I like vehicles like the Zonda and Spikers in general. They don't try to follow the crowd. They don't care about the crowd. They make their own crowd. That's the kind of supercar that I like. Other companies do it as well, like B Engineering, Bertoni with the Mantida, Devon with the GTX, and various others which will still be featured in this series. Supercars which pave their own way and make their own legacy rather than simply trying to go for the same old goals that every other company does, like achieving various acceleration and top speed records, lap records, or having just ridiculous prices for the sake of it. Now, the Zenvo is an expensive car. It's over 600 grand, and even more if you convert it into other currency. But for a supercar that only has a production run of around 15 models, and for something as quick as it actually is, that's actually not that high. There are many supercars that offer less that do cost more than that. So as far as price, it's actually not that outlandish, especially if you compare it to something like the Bertoni Mantida or other even rarer supercars. In terms of weight, it's not as good as you'd expect from a supercar. It weighs well over 1600 kilos, actually close to 1700, which makes it heavier than a Mercedes SLR McLaren. So it is pretty heavy, to say the least. On Gran Turismo, though, that's not too much of an issue. We can give the car weight loss. The SLR McLaren, for instance, can be stripped down to around 1300 kilos instead of 1600. So even if that didn't work quite as well for this car, you should be able to get it probably down around the 1350 kilo region. And even if we weren't allowed to upgrade the power, 1100 horsepower in a 1350 kilo car is pretty much guaranteed to give you incredible straight line performance, not least of which acceleration. And that is one thing that the Zenvo is already very good at. 3 seconds to 60 is nothing to be sniffed at, especially for a car which doesn't really share any amazing amounts of technology with other supercars. So to make a supercar from scratch as they did, that can hit 60 in 3 seconds, yes, it does have 1100 horsepower, but it also weighs almost 1700 kilos and relies on the rear wheels. That's not bad at all. 3 seconds to 60 from a company which has never made a car before is not bad. Not bad at all. And the top speed of 233 would definitely be higher than that on GranTurismo, considering how unrealistic the top speeds are, and especially if we could adjust the gearbox ratios ourselves. Now, the top speed deficit is for a couple of reasons. One is the gearbox, and a second is the aerodynamics. And that's another reason why I love the car. The design of many supercars, especially mega cars such as Koenigsegg's, McLaren's, SSC, Bugatti, etc., they design their cars specifically to be as aerodynamically efficient as possible. And then they give up a little bit of that efficiency in order to make the car have their own unique look. Otherwise, all of the top supercars would look exactly the same, which they don't. They are different. Zenvo didn't do that. They didn't build a car that would be as aerodynamically efficient as possible. They designed a car to look good and to be unique. And it definitely is unique. In terms of looks, it's as unique as something like a Zonda or a Gumpert. And that's an awesome thing to be able to say in recent years. Because we're getting to the point where supercars, even with newer technology, are starting to look more and more alike. New concept cars are coming out and they just don't have any character. They look almost like kit cars. The Zenvo actually manages to have a look of quality about it, but simultaneously being unique to its own brand. You can't say that the Zenvo looks like anything else, because it doesn't. It's completely unique. As far as supercars go, I would describe the Zenvo as being kind of a muscle car inspired supercar. It looks like a powerful machine. But at the same time, I'm not at all surprised about its top speed. If you look at the car, it doesn't look like the world's fastest car. It doesn't look anywhere near it, and it's not. But it does look powerful, and it looks purposeful, and it looks menacing. And that's exactly what they wanted it to be. On GranTurismo, it's hard to say exactly where it would fit into the game or how good it could potentially be. It has been featured on some racing games, and on GranTurismo the tuning potential could make it very good, especially if we could upgrade the power. 1100 horsepower to start with. Well, it depends what we'd be allowed to do to it, but you could potentially wring out in excess of 1300 horsepower out of the car relatively easily based on GranTurismo's upgrade options. But even if we couldn't do that, it would still be incredibly quick, even with just a transmission change and potentially some weight loss. As far as PP, well, it's very hard to say, because although it's very powerful, it is also very heavy. And it's not the quickest of track cars, so the PP may not be as high as other vehicles on the game with similar power. You would naturally assume that the PP would probably be in the very high 600 region, possibly close to 700, but I don't think so, because the weight is very high. So I would expect the PP, especially being a rear-wheel drive car, which is another advantage that the Veyron has in the heavyweight category, to probably be more around maybe the 630 or 640 pp level, putting it more on par with, say, a fully upgraded Lister Storm race car. That seems more accurate for this kind of car. Fully tuned, I should think it could get close to 700, especially with weight loss. And around the track, it certainly has potential. It's got more than enough power and torque for most circuits that require acceleration. Top speed is something to be worked on, but it definitely has the potential on GranTurismo. Handling-wise, well, it's rear-wheel drive. The weight does naturally ground those rear wheels quite well, so by removing that weight you would be making it a more tail-happy vehicle. But if we were allowed to give it a rear wing, or even have a full aero package, making it more like the newly debuted TSR version, we could potentially have ourselves a pretty good track car. Potentially even something that could perhaps take on vehicles like the FXX, the Furai, and the Zonda R. Not necessarily on every track, but certainly on some. It has the sheer straight line acceleration to take on stuff like the FXX. Top speed wise, yet to be seen. As far as price on the game, well, it's a rare car, it's a powerful car, and it's unique to its country. So adding a new country to the game and being a rare car should make it pretty expensive. Now, I'm not talking 10 million, but I would like to see the Zenvo have a price of, say, 1.2 million, maybe 1.25 million, something like that. Something which signifies that it's not necessarily the best thing ever, but at the same time that it is certainly unique, it's exclusive, and it is very different to other supercar offerings. But that's it overall, in particular for this pick of the Zenvo ST1, and overall I wouldn't even mind, to be honest, if it was the TS1 instead of the ST1, the newer updated version, which does have a smaller engine, a 5.9 litre twin supercharged unit with yet to be seen power, or even the TSR version, which I mentioned just now, the more hardcore track version. Of the three, however, I would honestly prefer to have the original ST1, because as cool as the updated versions are, there's just something inherently cool about having the original, in my opinion. But to be honest, if any of them ended up on the game, I'd be happy with that. But that's it overall for this particular pick. If you are new to the series, feel free to slap down below what your dream car or cars would be to feature on GranTurismo in the future. Maybe something that's already been on another racing game, or maybe something that's never been on any game, as some of the cars in my list have been. But that's it overall. I'll see you guys next time, and as always, thanks for watching.